From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
You know, we're in divisive times. Every political party is looking for reasons to, criticize or attack their political opponents. And this story recently became the newest front for that acrimonious conversation. Here's the headline. In a few years, if you buy a new car in the U.S., you are also going to be under incredibly advanced surveillance. The idea is that any new car made after 2024 or so, 2026, I think, is going to be required to have advanced AI monitoring of the driver. Now, we talked about this a little bit off air because I'm a dog with a ball on this kind of stuff, or a badger with a bag. Yeah. But the idea is pretty simple. So let's say Codename Doc buys a new car after this thing goes into play. Then this system in this car, however vaguely defined, will monitor her driving habits. It'll use algorithmic learning to understand what a normal driving day is for Doc Holliday. And then using that data it's collected, if Doc is driving in an erratic manner, or if the algorithms determine that she may be impaired somehow, the system will be able to, details are vague again, but the headline is the system will be able to kill the car, just kind of like brick it or refuse to start at all. This will remind people of, I think it's every state now, but from my understanding, people who have a DWI or DUI conviction will, when they're getting their license back, they will need to use what's called an interlock device, which is basically a breathalyzer you have to blow into if you want your car to start.
If you've seen 40-Year-Old Virgin, you're aware of this technology.
Yes. And this is interesting to me because the story got exaggerated, embellished. There was a lot of alarmism, but just like off the cuff, hearing about what you've heard so far, where are you guys at on this? Is it overreach? Is it a good safety measure? Are there problems you can see along the way?
I'm trying to link it back to the discussions we've had of property ownership in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And is that vehicle really yours? Should you have the freedom to operate that thing if you truly own it as an object whenever you see fit, despite the laws of the land? It's a weird thing because you are definitely endangering others when you take that action, right, of driving while impaired.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also like one of these things where, we are all legally bound to register our vehicles and to pay for, emissions testing, depending on the city that you live in, and to, make sure that your registration is up to date. I know those aren't the same as having actual mandated things within the mechanics of your vehicle, but they're not that far a jump to me, maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's just the first thing that comes to mind. I'm not saying I'm for this, but it does feel like, there are things that we are required to do. We're not able to just say, nope, I can own a car and I don't have to do any of that stuff. So it could well be that as, time progresses, these things become more and more common and it doesn't feel so much like a breach. But right now it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's one of my concerns as well. So to quickly walk through it, first, let's do some old school stuff they don't want you to know, myth busting. Let's separate fact from fiction. You're going to see a lot of reports that claim there is kill switch legislation. It is true that this idea is a law. It has passed. The idea that it could shut your car off is not quite what the bill says, but this speculation was started by an actual government representative, Representative Bob Barr here in Georgia, on November 29th, 2021, started talking about this kill switch. But if you look at what the bill actually says in section 24220, it talks about regulations for what they call advanced impaired driving technology. And you can see the section of the bill online if you would like, encourage you to do so. But what it actually says is that they want this equipment to passively monitor a driver's performance such that it can identify when something is up with them. And then, if they are found to be impaired, it will, quote, prevent or limit operation of the vehicle, which is kind of a kill switch. They just don't use that phrase. And then it can also detect, again, passively the blood alcohol level of a driver. What could go wrong with this? Well, there are a couple things. First is the practicality of this. The technology to do this doesn't exist yet. This is a law about a thing that people cannot build yet. Because think about like the most basic thing. Okay, let's say let's take out the moralism of drinking alcohol and driving while impaired. Let's say that someone has a medical condition, right? Maybe they have a heart attack or they have a seizure of some sort. Or maybe it's as simple as just something gets in your eye under your contact lens and you can't see. So you're driving crazy, obviously, because you can't see. How would this system be able to determine a safe place to slow down and stop? You know what I mean? Like picture you're on the interstate, you're doing 75, and that probably makes you one of the slower drivers if there's no traffic. How does this thing, without human assistance, navigate over to the side of the road and stop safely without hitting anything else? You know what I mean? Like, how does this work if you're on a bridge? There are practical problems with this. And we see this a lot whenever large government mandates come out in the U.S. The year it's supposed to happen is almost never the year it actually happens. It feels like they're going to get to a few years down the road and they're going to say, oh, we still can't build this.
This is the fabled scenario that I don't know we've encountered before, where legislation is outpacing technology, Ben.
Whoa.
It is, but it's doing it in like the way. I just re-listened to our CEO episode, and thanks to everybody who wrote in with awesome feedback. But it reminds me of the way like business execs make proposals. They say, imagine a world where elephants can fly and speak Portuguese. That's the world we're working for, and we think that we'll be there in 5 years. And everybody in the boardroom's like, yeah, sure, you're a visionary, a genius, but no one can do
Blue sky
it. Blue sky it, that's it.
But also, like, who determines the course of history in that way for such an odd flex in that direction? Right?
Yeah.
Like to me, this feels like overreach, and like there are plenty of safe alternatives to, like do we need this? Is my question.
Well, let me put this forward to you, because I think we maybe do need something like this. I think in the scenario you outlined, Ben, where it was the vehicle in motion and then it detects that there's something wrong with the driver. I don't think it would ever be like that. I don't think that would be able to function. Like the driver is now impaired after they've been driving the vehicle already. I think it would be a startup like sequence that the vehicle goes through every time you turn it on. The way that existing technology is, where you'd have to blow into the breathalyzer essentially to activate the vehicle, I think it would be an assessment of the driver prior to actually, putting it in drive or reverse or whatever to go. That's my only way. That's my only way of thinking how it would function. I don't know. I feel like we do need that, kind of. I hate the concept of government or some corporation being our individual nanny watching us and our behavior, but it's drunk driving is a problem.
Right. In just 2019, there were over 10,000 alcohol impaired driving fatalities in the U.S. It is a problem.
But is this, while drunk driving on the surface might be the reason for like pursuing this kind of technology, isn't it kind of a slippery slope argument? Whereas, I mean, is there concern for abuse of the system or of, undue monitoring that really does infringe on our privacy, for people that behave themselves?
Yeah, possibly. It's troublingly vague. There are no details in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is a gargantuan bunch of paperwork. There are no details about exactly how these mechanisms would work. There are no details about what happens to the data gathered. That's what is it? Is it a third-party company? Is it selling the information about people's driving habits, essentially the metadata of you every time you're in a car? And if so, how does that get used in the future? Could it be used against you? You know what I mean? This happens with insurance data. This happens with medical information. It's a very, very sticky subject. I don't want to have to be the bad guy here, but one thing a lot of people forget in these conversations is that nowhere, absolutely nowhere, is the ability to operate a motor vehicle considered some sort of inherent right. It is a privilege. That's why you have to do stuff like get registration. That's why you have to pass an exam. That's why you have to, check in and renew your license. This means that ultimately the government, Uncle Sam, can make whatever rules they wish. If they wanted to say that now everybody who wants to drive a car has to be wearing one of those Falcon hats at all times, then they can do that. You know what I mean? You can't really stop it unless you take a case to the courts.
This isn't to say that it's not still a problem, but drunk driving fatalities are significantly down historically. I mean, since 1982, they're down 52%. But that still represents a number, I think, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 36,560 people died in traffic crashes in 2018 in the U.S., and that included an estimated 10,511 people who were killed in drunk driving crashes. That's still, a lot of people, but historically, it is down because of things like, Uber, ride shares, and all of that. And obviously with smart cars in the future, that could help reduce that even more. I question whether we need a direct line to Uncle Sam in our cars.
Right. Sometimes these broad brush initiatives are more successful when private entities kind of agree to just on their own to do them. Somebody will make a lot of money here, whomever is manufacturing these devices. Because it's a government mandate, they're going to reach some kind of uniformity of standard. So it's not as if you're going to have to buy an Apple breathalyzer or something and it can only be Apple. But I share the concerns because it goes back into the right of ownership. What does ownership mean? As you said, Matt, it goes back into how much the government and associated entities should be able to know about what you do, and you can spin so many different scenarios, as Jonathan Strickland over at our complaint department would say. But mwahaha, indeed. Yeah, that's Jonathan Strickland at iHeartRadio.com. Feel free to hit him up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this, because it's so vague, it's something that we need to collectively keep eyes on. And we are increasingly, as a society, heading toward a world in which people are going to pay more and more for analog used vehicles. Like they're gonna go up. This is not investment advice. This is just an observation, and I think it is a very safe prediction to make. The argument is this: is the government, while acting in good faith to prevent incredibly tragic deaths, are they, whether by design or by accident, opening the door to something else? That would be the slippery slope. Personally, I don't know about you guys. This seems inevitable to me that this kind of monitoring would continue. There's too much money to be made. Lives are at stake. No matter how hyperbolic some of the reporting would be, but when your kids start driving, Matt, Noel, wouldn't you be happy that something like this was in their car?
Touche, Ben. Touche. I was just thinking about that the other day, about how horrifying the prospect of my kid driving around in Atlantic traffic is. I'm not like an overly worrisome person, but there's a lot at stake, with your loved ones. It definitely puts it into perspective. That's a really good point, Ben. When you put it like that, and I think in my mind of what it's going to be like when my kid turns 16 and is driving around, I want every safeguard possible in place. So surveil away, I guess, government. You got me there, Ben.
Well, it is weird to think because you're not talking about just the car surveilling your daughter or me, in my case, the car surveilling my son. It's surveilling every person they will encounter on the road. And, it's the thing you always talk about, Ben. We always take a gamble because of these, what is it? The lines that we all decided you're not supposed to cross.
To recap, how silly will it be to explain to future historians? We used to hop in these machines that could go in excess of 100 miles an hour, and if they hit each other, it would be a guaranteed disaster. And a lot of people died, not just every year, but every week. And then they say, well, how did everybody continue driving in this madhouse? And you say, well, we painted these lines. And these lines tell you.
Some of them are solid.
Yeah.
Some of them are dotted.
Dots,
they mean different things.
We got some
of them, the paint's degraded.
Yeah.
When it rains, you can't really see them.
No, everything's all shiny. Can we just go with like some Tron-esque kind of laser lanes? That'd be cool. Let's spend our R&D money on that technology.
Yeah, let's also, I think I mentioned this too, let's also have some more positive road signs. All the road signs you see, at least in the U.S., the vast majority of them are things that you shouldn't do. Wrong way, no exit, no left turn. The only slightly positive road sign in the U.S. is keep going or something like that.